All right, hello everyone. This video is going to be on cold soaking. I'm hoping I'm going to do a series on cold soaking videos, or on cold soap, on cold soaping. Oh my gosh, cold soaking topics. This is number one. We'll see how it goes. I always start with such high hopes, and who knows, this might be a whole series of one. Today, the only thing I'm going to discuss is what kind of container to use for your cold soaking. It is probably the number one question that I've received over the years. And way back when, like 3 years ago when this channel started, I had some more videos that were more specific to cold soaking. And this is the question that a lot of people asked me about, emailed me about, is just what kind of container and what size. So let's talk about that today. Here we go. If I was a fancier YouTuber, you would have heard theme music as I was running around this incredible log that's lying here. So let's talk about containers for cold soaking. When you are trying to get advice on cold soaking, I'm going to take a wild guess that this is not the only video that you are going to watch or the only website you are going to read. And so I just want to throw something out there for you. And that is, even if you turn this video off in 30 seconds because you think it's useless, please find advice from someone who actually cold soaks and not someone who's just trying it for the first time or tried it once to see how it compared to stove backpacking. I've seen a few videos over the last few months from people who did videos like, my cold soaking experience for the first time, or how does cold soaking compare to backpacking with a stove? And some of them were from big names with lots of views, and they simply gave a lot of bad information. They didn't do any research ahead of time. They just went out there and just soaked stuff. And if you only watch those videos, you come away with a really negative attitude about cold soaking. So as you're getting advice on cold soaking, just make sure that the person that you're listening to has actually done cold soaking, hopefully more than once, and had success with it. Ignore the videos that are just like me. They're great for entertainment, but they're not very good for content. I'm not saying that this is going to be the best video you've ever seen, but just I follow that advice and you'll be much happier with your cold soaking stoveless experience. All right, so what kind of container? So obviously there's a million different containers out there you can take. The one that I always suggest is just a peanut butter container because they come in pretty standard sizes. And so if you're looking for a size that would fit your meal, you can kind of just go to the peanut butter aisle and you end up with three choices usually. You end up with the small little ones, you end up with the medium ones, and you end up with the large ones. For a lot of my cold soaking, I use the medium size. Now this particular one right here is 28 ounces. That's the weight of it. And I would say for probably 75% of my meals, I will go with this size right here. This one is just way too small for me. And this one is usually bigger than I need, but I will often sometimes bring this because the amount of weight that you're saving with the smaller one right here in this hand is not considerable enough to make me really press the pause button on just grabbing this if it's the first thing I see. So the one that, again, if you're going to start with anything, start with the middle size peanut butter container. Now I do see on a lot of videos people recommend the Talenti sorbet sorbet container, and I do wonder if that's because, like, I don't know. I know when I first started paying attention to backpacking videos on YouTube, there's a really big YouTuber who used this for their food container. And I wonder if, all those hundreds of thousands of people that watched his videos just kind of said, all right, well, that's the container for me. And then they just passed that advice on and so forth and so on. I would not recommend this container. It's too small. I mean, granted, maybe you hardly eat, and maybe for some people it's perfect. But I don't think you can squeeze in enough calories into this container with one meal unless you supplement with a lot of other things. Just to give you an idea of the size difference. So this is basically filled up to the top threads with water. You pour it into this container. You can kind of see the water comes up to right about there. So there's a lot more space in here for you to fit a lot more food or just simply water to allow it to soak, and whatever you're eating to soak and expand. So again, that's why I recommend that middle-sized peanut butter jar. You don't want to pick any kind of container that has that skinny neck. It makes it harder to get the food out because again, your spoon is only so long. This is a Gossamer Gear spoon, so it's got a nice long handle. If you're not packing something with a long handle, it ends up being, you know, if I get to the bottom, my knuckles are already trying to get to the top. So you don't want something with that skinny neck. All right, so let's say you've gone to the store, you've selected your peanut butter jar, you have eaten all of the peanut butter from your jar. What's next? So the first thing that I end up doing, even though the video I'm going to supplement right here in a couple of seconds, I did not do this too, but normally what I would do is I eat all the peanut butter and then I use one of those baking scrapers, like the kind that would scrape out a bowl, and I scrape away as much peanut butter as I can. I don't know if you've ever tried to clean out a peanut butter jar and make it clean. It's not as easy as you'd think. Then the next thing that I do is I will boil some water, and I will take the boiling water, I'll take it off the stove for a little bit. I don't pour it into the container like right away because it's just way too hot. I'll pour the water into the container, and then when I put the lid back on, you don't want to crank it shut. When you shake it, there's going to be so much pressure that it just bursts. So I leave it open a little bit to allow it to like fizz out, and then if I nailed it and it's only a little bit of water coming out, I'll leave it. If there's a lot of water coming out, I'll slowly tighten it. But basically you want to shake the heck out of that container with that really hot water in it, and just shake and shake and shake and shake. Even if you have a persistent little section in the jar, it will come off eventually. And so just shake the heck out of that jar, and eventually all the peanut butter gets off the sides. The next thing that you want to do is you want to get some nice little soapy scrubber thing and scrub around the hole inside and get all the grease out of there. You especially want to get in those grooves of the threads, like the inside of the threads, and you especially want to get inside the threads of the lid right there. The next thing that you want to do, let's see which container. So with this container is a good example. Whenever you take off that, like, you know, that protection sort of piece of paper that's on the containers, it's always going to leave, I don't know if you can see it, it's always going to leave that little bit of paper there. You definitely want to scrape that away. You don't want to leave anything on the lid of the jar in which food particles are going to get under and get stuck, or food particles or you know, moisture is going to get to it and then keep it moist. And so what I do, very simple, is I'm just going to take a really sharp knife and I'm going to work my way around and I'm going to scrape it all off. And I'm not going to do this whole thing here, but it's just a very simple process. This next thing is going to sound really silly, but do use a sharp knife. I find that when I've tried to use like a knife from my kitchen cabinet that is not as sharp as my knife tools, what it does is instead of scraping it perfectly smooth, it does leave it a little bit rough sometimes. And again, you don't want anything that could absorb the particles and keep things in there. You want to keep it nice and clean. And so scrape it all around. And even before you do that, when you first take it off, you can kind of think to yourself, all right, I need to do this as neatly as possible. And so kind of go really slow taking off that piece of paper. And so what you're left with is a nice clean lid that is totally free of all of the paper and all of the plastic. Okay, so that's it for container choices. If you've made it this far and you are like a really experienced person, you're probably like, hey, I didn't learn anything new. And that wasn't the intent of this video. It was made for people who are just starting off and have really never wondered or thought about these things before. And in the next video, I hope it's going to be another video, I'm going to actually put in what type of foods you can cold soak. And hopefully that video will get made, or we'll see what happens. All right, I think that's it. We'll end it there. Bye-bye.